Glinda the Good Witch. The one we know from The Wizard of Oz. The one that comes down on a bubble, covered in sparkles. This is how we've always known her. Since the release of Wicked the musical, we have seen a new side. This is a story that investigates the source of evil and what we call wickedness. In the story, how is Glinda positioned? What does she do? How does she help Elphaba? Does she help Elphaba? Is she really Glinda the Good Witch? Wicked changes the view of the Wizard of Oz in order to tell a story of oppression. It tells the story of how people fight against oppression and how politicians create lies that pacify us. It is a story about appearance versus reality and a society that believes that they are the same.
But I've never heard of a beautiful witch before. Only bad witches are ugly.
It is a cautionary tale about how these systems continue and control. As of posting this video, only part 1 of the movie has come out. Spoilers ahead. In The Wizard of Oz, everyone loves and believes the wizard. He is the man that gave them the idea of security. He has done this by his lies of magic and by giving everyone a common enemy to blame all of their problems on. The animals or animals are Ozians that just look like animals, but they are equal to humans in capability and intelligence. They teach at universities and deliver babies. But the wizard made them the enemy because they look like they could be one. They don't look like the human-shaped Ozians. Wicked follows how Elphaba discovers the source of oppression in Oz, fights against it, but then is ultimately driven out of society. The first half of the musical focuses on her friendship with Glinda. The second half is about their lives after they split up in order to fight oppression. Glinda is a very interesting character to discuss. She starts as a spoiled and racist student at Shiz University to very self-aware. No one in Oz honestly knows her motives or that she's a double agent or what she's thinking at any given moment. In this video, I want to look at her role within the play as someone who is on the side of the rebels but also is the darling of the oppressor. How does this affect the system that Elphaba is trying to change? What is Glinda's true role within the musical and what does it teach us? The Wicked musical was released in 2003. During that time, people saw Glinda very differently from how we see her today. The framing shows her fighting just as legitimately as Elphaba, that when they split, she becomes a double agent and is secretly against the wizard. However, it's clear today that Glinda perfectly embodies white feminism and shows us why it's so dangerous. In Ruby Hamad's book, White Tears, Brown Scars, How White Feminism Betrays Women of Color, white feminism is defined as white feminist, which does not mean any feminist who is white, but refers to feminism that prioritizes the concerns of white middle-class women as though they are representative of all women. Her ignorance and how she prioritizes appearance over anything else is what prevents her from actually changing anything. I'm going to go through the songs and discuss how it shows Glinda's white feminism and also how the musical unpacks racism as a whole. The musical starts at the end of The Wizard of Oz, before we go back to the past. A familiar place in the story to bring the audience into a new view of this world. Ozians cheering for death after they hear Dorothy melted the Wicked Witch of the West. This song does 2 important things. It shows us the philosophy of the people in this world and also how Elphaba has been dehumanized. These people think in black and white terms. You are good or you are wicked. And you are categorized into one of those two based off of appearance rather than deed. This type of thinking encourages the Ozians to cheer for literal death. As sociologist Lawrence Bobo observes, at the core of racism is a denial of full and common humanity for members of a particular group. In this song, we can see Glinda trying to humanize Elphaba. She describes her childhood and how she was immediately rejected by her father as soon as they all found out she was green. She wants to put the thought in their head that maybe there is nuance to people. Maybe Elphaba didn't stand a chance starting out this way.
Are people born wicked, or do they have wickedness thrust upon them?
Glinda's attempt to humanize does not register to the people of Oz at all, and they immediately go back to celebrating.
Take it away!
So you see, it couldn't have been easy.
This establishment of indigenous savagery served a critical political function. It justified the brutal maltreatment of indigenous human beings, including killing. Because her dehumanization was so normalized, the people of Oz don't feel conflicted over her death. They do not see it as a death of a person, they see it as a death of wickedness. Any cruelty or danger Elphaba faces is deserved in their eyes. These processes have invented, refashioned, and maintained race by coding some people as white, and therefore fully human, and others as non-white, and therefore less than fully human. In turn, humanity, viewed here as a contingent and constructed status rather than a biological fact, has been used as a point of demarcation for the allocation of economic and political resources, rights, and privileges. Throughout the play, we will see how Elphaba was dehumanized and how her attempts at assimilation failed. But this song shows how successful this society was at separating people by dehumanization. If we look at Glinda specifically, she comes down in a bubble, which is a little on the nose. We can see that she's the only one who is actually mourning Elphaba. She sings "She's Alone" under all the cheering. You can barely hear her. You can hear her love for Elphaba, but she also allows everybody else to cheer, and she allows them to believe lies about her. Her little attempt at sympathy is not enough.
No, I'd never show it. I'd be so happy I could melt.
Elphaba shows up to Shiz University basically to be an aide and servant to her sister. We can see the disdain from her cuck of a dad, and her sister is kind of a little shit.
No father is not proud of you. No sister acts ashamed.
If you don't like Nessa now, wait for part 2. Everything Elphaba has ever wanted has been pushed aside her whole life. Her childhood has convinced her that she shouldn't care about herself and nobody else should care because she is green. She has also been told to suppress her powers. She is one of the only characters that is actually able to do magic. She is finally recognized by Madame Morrible, who tells her that she can help Elphaba meet the wizard. Elphaba doesn't know yet that they just mean to exploit her and legitimize themselves through her powers. She just thinks that she finally got a win. The Wizard and I is where we first see her inner life and her wants. She wants to be celebrated and loved for what she can offer people, and who she is. Her wants clearly changed during Defying Gravity, but this is how she's felt her whole life. And what she wants is to assimilate. She feels a huge gap between how she sees herself and how people see her, and she wants them to match.
Shouldn't a girl who's so good inside have a matching exterior?
And she dreams of not being green. She doesn't want to change the system yet, she just wants to be accepted within it.
Would it be alright by you if I degreenify you?
Unfortunately, this is a real-world desire for many girls who are born with darker skin. It is discussed in White Tears, Brown Scars. Whiteness is more than skin color. It is a system that privileges those racial, cultural, and religious identities that most resemble the typical characteristics associated with the white Western Europeans who created the system in their image. And this system of white supremacy is now so ingrained that it can exist without white people. Colorism, the discrimination and prejudice against darker-skinned people of color, often from within their own communities, in favor of those whose physical features are closer to those set by Western beauty standards, plagues virtually all communities across the globe. The British-Dutch founded corporation behind Fair & Lovely, India's most popular skin whitening product. 90% of Indian women and girls view skin lightening as a high need, because it is aspirational like losing weight. A fair skin is like education, regarded as a social and economic step up. But why do so many South Asian women come to think this way? At least part of this yearning to be fairer can be put down to the aggressive marketing of such products. Typically, marketing shows potential suitors choosing fairer skin partners over their darker rivals, and it doesn't stop at merely promoting lighter skin. The implication is that these products can transform the user's entire lives. The book continues to talk about how girls as young as 12 use skin lighteners. Women and girls use them despite knowing the health risks, including skin cancer, mercury poisoning, and liver damage. Corporations manipulate audiences through advertising, making people believe that with lighter skin, they will have more chances to succeed. Of course, Elphaba's situation and her song does not show the entire depth and breadth of this issue or the horrifying nature of it. But I think it's important to talk about the measures some people take to assimilate and how these ideas come up in the musical. Elphaba sees a successful path ahead of her, but only if she wasn't green. White feminism in the real world does not talk about skin lightening at all. And no one in Elphaba's life tells her that she does not need to assimilate, other than Fiyero, but we'll get to him. I bring up real world skin lightening not to make light of it, but to point out that if anyone has sympathy for Elphaba, they should also have sympathy for the real girls and women who go through this. In this song, she is so hopeful, and she is so doomed.
A celebration throughout Oz, that's all to do with me.
And we can ask ourselves, did she ever have a chance? She sees the vision of everyone celebrating. It's already happening in her mind. Is this a self-fulfilling prophecy? Was there any way out for her? Would that celebration ever have been for anything other than her death? So, since the movie has come out, a lot of people have been using this song in order to ship Elphaba and Glinda and make them an enemies to lovers couple. And I'm not here to tell you that two girls shouldn't kiss. That's not what this video is about. But I am sorry to crush any shipper's dreams, but this song is not about enemies to lovers. It is about an oppressor looking at the oppressed and hating it. The fact that they have to coexist, you know, because of racism. I'm sorry. Ship these characters to your heart's desire. The author of the novel loves that for you. I'm just saying that maybe this song isn't the place you want to start. So Glinda and Elphaba have to share a room at Shiz University because of shenanigans. This is the first time that Glinda hasn't gotten her way and has to be faced with someone who is not like herself, and also does not see Glinda as the perfect shining beacon of loveliness. This partly shows why she's so ignorant. It's because she's never been challenged. They hate each other for superficial reasons.
For your face, your voice, your clothing.
And this is honestly how much anyone has to know about somebody else to hate someone for racist reasons. The most telling part of this song is when the ensemble sings to cheer on Glinda. I'm gonna read the lyrics because I don't know how much I can put in here with copyright. And I'm gonna try not to sing. Dear Glinda, you were just too good. How do you stand it? I don't think I could. She's a terror, she's a tartar. We don't mean to show a bias, but Glinda, you're a martyr. Poor Glinda, forced to reside with someone so disgustingified. We all want to tell you, we're all on your side. We share your loathing. They pity Glinda and call her a martyr because she has to simply share a room with someone who is green. And they say exactly how they feel. She's disgusting. She's a terror. It's an insult that Glinda would have to share space with her as if they are equals. And Glinda is just loving the sympathy.
These things are sent to try us.
Some of us still tend to favor form over content, Miss Glinda.
Oh, it's Galinda with a Ga.
So Elphaba's plot has a hell of a lot more going on than Glinda's does. Glinda's upset she's not in the sorcery class, she's flirting with Fiero later on, and she's just kind of doing whatever she feels like.
And I don't see why you can't just teach us history instead of always harping on the past.
Meanwhile, Elphaba is talking to Dr. Dilliman about how all the animals are going missing and they can't talk or teach at universities anymore. Glinda's story is only concerned with things that concern her. Elphaba's story is concerned with many things outside of her, and mostly how society just reacts to her. In this song, Dilliman is telling Elphaba about all the teachers he knows that aren't able to speak anymore.
I've heard of an Ox professor from Cox no longer permitted to teach, who has lost all powers of speech.
And no one is aware that this problem is happening. It's happening under the surface and covered up. Oppressors and dictators will always target education and freedom of speech first. When people are undereducated and they cannot hear the experiences or stories or histories of marginalized people, they are unable to use critical thought or empathize with them. They are unable to break down the lies from politicians and see that they have no merit. To get rid of racism, we must teach the historical and contemporary racial injustice that our communities have experienced and fought against. Ethnic studies has been at the forefront of ensuring that the stories, struggles, survival, social movements, and solidarity of people of color are being taught. To be honest, ethnic studies saved my own life, and it is the only place in education where I feel true belonging. Preventing the animals from sharing their stories and from educating people is what leads to dehumanization. Elphaba thinks that there's a simple solution to this because of her ignorance.
If something bad is happening to the animals, then someone's got to tell the wizard. It'll make it right.
The wizard has created a lie that everyone lives in and learns in, and they think that the wizard will protect them from anything because of this lie. This is done through propaganda and the lack of education. It is so strong that even Elphaba and Dr. Dilliman believe it. And they also think that the wizard doesn't know, but politicians always know when a group is being marginalized, and it's so often on purpose. Because when a group is marginalized, someone profits. Later on in the story, Dr. Dilliman is ripped out of class and cannot teach anymore, and the new curriculum brought in teaches the students that if they put animals into cages, it can stop them from speaking. The meaning of this song is clear and hauntingly cheerful. Fiyero shows up to Shiz and laughs that anyone is actually studying. Why study when you can go to the most swankified place in town? Honestly, I was waiting to see how the movie was going to handle this line and having it come out of an actual person's mouth, but they didn't. Cowards. It continues the discussion of education within the musical.
The trouble with schools is they always try to teach the wrong lesson. Believe me, I've been kicked out of enough of them to know. They want you to become less callow, less shallow.
He's pointing out that being taught makes you a better person. But Jan, why would you ever want to do that?
Nothing matters, but knowing nothing matters.
Privileged people get to take an easy route in life. There is one opened up to them. Fiyero celebrates that he doesn't have to think outside of himself ever, and his life is never affected by that. When you don't know how bad things are they really that bad? Who cares? It's not happening to me. But we can see that the bad things in this play still happen, and people still get hurt whether or not others care about it. The people who are just experiencing that hurt are silenced. Everyone's allowed to dance, except for Elphaba. She shows up to the Ozdas ballroom and everyone stops. She steps out into the middle of the room and starts dancing. Everyone points and laughs, but she doesn't stop. This is her attempt to assimilate, and she's not good at it. She dances like everyone will eventually join, or like she's daring them to tell her to stop. She is nervous and hating her life and feeling super awkward, but she's forcing herself to take up space for the first time. And going back before the dance, Glinda was really two-faced. She sets up Bach with Nessa to reject him without being the bad guy, and then she gives the pointy hat to Elphaba.
I'd give it away, but I don't hate anyone that much.
But Elphaba sees what she did for Nessa, and she thinks the pointy hat is not a backhanded compliment. So Elphaba does something good for Glinda and gets her into the sorcery class Glinda wanted. I want to talk later on how deeds are perceived based off of who's doing them, but right now that's just important to note. Glinda can't believe that Elphaba will fight for something that Glinda wants, and she includes her in something that she was left out of. So when Elphaba starts dancing and making a fool of herself, Glinda steps in. At the time of the musical's release, it suggests that Glinda dances with her because Elphaba has done something nice for her, and now she can look past her hatred and see more of her. Both of them do nice things, and respond back to the other with kindness. A modern reading that includes white feminism suggests that Glinda only sees value in women of color when they do something that benefits her, and not just because they exist. I believe that Glinda was shocked when Elphaba did this for her, because she knew she was being mean to her. I believe that she also felt a bit of guilt and personal responsibility.
I'll say this much for her. She doesn't give a twig what anyone else thinks.
Of course she does. She just pretends not to.
She's wearing an ugly hat that everyone's laughing at that Glinda gave her. She sees that she has made someone's life worse. At this moment, she shreds a tiny bit of ignorance, and this allows her to have a genuine friendship with Elphaba. She sees the gap between appearance and reality for the first time, and that sticks with her through the rest of the play. Unfortunately, she never really unpacks all that she needs to in order to be a real friend.
Even in your case.
Not gonna lie, this song makes me really sad. You can see Glinda's love for Elphaba. You can see how she's excited to be friends with her. You can see that she honestly thinks that this plan will work.
And with an assist from me to be who you'll be instead of dreary who you were, well, are. There's nothing that can stop you from becoming popular.
And we can see Elphaba nervous and unsure, but like a little hopeful. But this is also where we can see Glinda's ignorance in white feminism on full display. The goal of white feminism is not to alter the systems that oppress women, patriarchy, capitalism, imperialism, but to succeed within them. For too long, women from other racial and ethnic backgrounds brought into the false promises of equality. Glinda is trying to help Elphaba by making her fit into society and assimilate rather than uplifting who she actually is. Glinda thinks that a little bit of lipstick and a little bit of hair flipping is all Elphaba needs to be popular. She doesn't understand how much this system does to prevent people like Elphaba from succeeding. Under the wizard's lie and lack of education, Glinda doesn't know how to help Elphaba despite really wanting to. What she's suggesting Elphaba do is what worked for Glinda, so why wouldn't it work for her? She doesn't consider Elphaba's position in her society.
Don't wish, don't start wishing only wounds the heart. I wasn't born for the rose and
So Elphaba and Fiyero rescue the lion cub from class and have a little flirty moment.
My life would be if I did
Do
it.
you ever let anyone else talk?
Oh, sorry.
Look,
Listen, I just said one more thing.
Fiyero then runs back to his perfect relationship with Glinda. Elphaba sings that she will never be the girl that he would love. She will never experience love, and should never hope to. The song shows the default experience of marginalized people even when things are working out a little bit in their life. Exclusion. Everyone is told how life should work. You go to school, you work hard, you'll be successful. You meet a guy you like, you'll get married. If you work hard, it'll pay off. But exclusion comes when people of color hear this and it does not work out for them. They see these doors open to other people but them. She copes with this exclusion by just telling herself not to wish or hope.
don't dream too far. Don't lose sight of who you are. Don't drink and that rush of joy.
And moodified, and he's been thinking, which really worries me.
So right before the two girls leave to meet the wizard, Elphaba and Fiyero talk about how they think about the day Dr. Dillman was removed from class.
I think about that day a lot.
So do I.
Oh, me too.
And Glinda decides that she is so upset that she has to make an announcement.
Since Dr. Dillerman had his own way of pronouncing my name in solidarity and to express my outrage, I will henceforward be known no longer as Glinda, but as simply Glinda.
This pretty clearly is performative activism, defined as activism that is done to increase one's social capital rather than because of one's devotion to a cause. A person who is taking part in performative activism would rather let it be known that they are not racist, sexist, homophobic, etc., rather than actually seeking change in racist structures within our country. Performative activism is not exclusive to white feminism, but it's one of white feminism's favorite tools to feel like they're doing something when they're doing nothing. Changing her name is laughable, and it's played that way in the musical. It feels silly when everyone claps for her, but they clap all the same, and because of that, she doesn't have to reevaluate herself. Could you imagine if people booed or rolled their eyes? How Glinda might actually have to think about what she just did.
That's why I do the best I can to treat each citizen of Oz as son or daughter.
The first thing we see of the wizard isn't him, but a big robot head. It immediately sets him up to be all smoke and mirrors. The wizard is presented as a sentimental man, a fatherly man, but is this true? The whole play warns us not to take politicians' words that they spoon-feed to us without a second thought. We can't believe that he actually sees Ozians as children. That is how he's packaging himself to us. The only thing we know for sure about him comes later, when we find out he wants to exploit Elphaba.
So, Elphaba, I'd like to raise you high, 'cause I think everyone deserves the chance to fly.
We also know that him using the word parental is foreshadowing the fact that he's Elphaba's father, but none of the characters know that right now. Right after this song, Elphaba learns that he was responsible for the animal's oppression and does not have any powers.
The best way to bring folks together is to give them a really good enemy.
He needs her to create his smoke and mirrors.
You have no real power.
Exactly. That's why I need you.
There's a prophecy that in Oz's time of need, someone will come and they will be able to read the Grimoire. The Grimoire is just this big magic spell book, and this person will use the Grimoire in order to save Oz. So the wizard just told everyone that was him, and then he just said, I'll save you from the animals, because apparently Those are your enemies. Now the wizard has someone who can read the grimoire, and he needs them in order to perform magic. He tries to bribe her and says that if you help me oppress these animals more, you'll be my right-hand gal. And Elphaba throws herself out a window.
Together we're unlimited. Together we'll be the greatest team there's ever been, Glinda.
The truth is out and Elphaba's pissed, and it's amazing. Elphaba is gonna fly and punch hole in the wizard's lies. And Glinda decides to stay back. The framing of their breakup suggests that we are supposed to see both of their plans as legitimate and noble, two sides of the same coin. On Elphaba's side, she had no choice about how she was fighting. If she decided to stay back and fight how Glinda was, no one would accept her. No one is going to accept a green woman who wants to destroy their facade of safety.
Citizens of Oz, there is an enemy who must be found and captured. Believe nothing she says.
No matter what she did, she would have been seen the same way. Thinking of Glinda's fight as noble makes us ask some interesting questions. If she is noble, then the play is saying that people need a figure to look up to. Does the wizard's lie have to be upheld for society to function? Glinda wants to uphold it in a way that protects Elphaba and a way for Glinda to be successful within it. But this doesn't accomplish anything. This is another mistake that Glinda makes. Her plan would have never worked. She is choosing to stay socially acceptable. And you can't fight society in a socially acceptable way. She has one foot in both camps and it leads to nothing.
My job is done here.
But you didn't do anything.
Exactly.
White feminists will always put their status in the patriarchy above other women. They will fight for their place, and they will not look around to see if other women or women of color have found theirs. Glinda honestly hopes that Elphaba's doing well. That part in the song was not a lie.
Hope you're happy, my friend.
But it's clear that Elphaba is on her own.
Where I'm from, we believe all sorts of things that aren't true. We call it history.
In part 2, Glinda is now a fully fledged public figure. She is where she always wanted to be, and she is about as famous as the wizard. I want to compare the two songs that the wizard and Glinda sing that show their points of view on being these public figures. In Wonderful, the wizard tells us that he knows how bad things are, but people love him. He just got carried away. And how can you blame him?
They called me wonderful, so I said, wonderful, if you insist.
He's dancing through life. Nothing hurts him if he doesn't think about it. But unlike the students dancing through life, the wizard knows how bad the animals are being treated, and he knows he's the one doing it. He also justifies the system to Elphaba and himself.
A rich man's a thief, a philanthropist. Is one a crusader or ruthless invader? It's all in which label is able to persist.
If the nature of a person is dependent on the label given to them, then it doesn't matter what they do. He can do whatever he wants and still be wonderful. If politicians are never criticized or questioned, then they wouldn't have any reason to change. There's no checks and balances in Oz. The public's mindless admiration of him allows him to be this way. And he almost gets to Elphaba while he's skipping around, until she is reminded of the not-so-wonderful part of the wizard. Right before this song, she returned to the wizard's castle in order to free the flying monkeys. And that's where she finds a caged Dr. Dilliman.
You want to know my heart's desire. It is to fight you until the day I die.
The first song in part 2 is Thank Goodness, sung by Glinda. We see how Glinda is a public figure with a fake persona as well. She announces her engagement to Fiyero. She is now called Glinda the Good. And Madame Marble creates lies about Elphaba in order to make Glinda seem better. And she sings Thank Goodness to talk about all the good things happening in her life. She is equally as two-faced as the wizard. But unlike the wizard, there's a part in Thank Goodness where Glinda is singing and the clouds part a bit.
That's why
Though it is, I admit, the tiniest bit unlike I anticipated. But I couldn't be happier. Simply couldn't be happier. Well, not simply. 'Cause getting your dreams, it's strange but it seems a little, well, complicated. There's kind of a sort of cost. There's a couple of things that get lost. There are bridges you cross you didn't know you crossed until you've crossed.
that joy, that thrill does
Glinda isn't fulfilled with her outcome. That little tiny bit of self-awareness she got from Elphaba is coming through in this song. She has wanted this position her entire life, and now that she has it, it's not what she wanted. She knows that in order to have gotten it, she had to hurt her friend, and her friend is now alone. The cost is that she had to degrade and leave Elphaba. We can see her still trying to humanize Elphaba through this song, though. She only sings it and announces her engagement to distract the people of Oz from how scared they are of her, and how scared they are of Madame Morble's propaganda. And as we talked about already, this isn't enough to make Glinda do anything.
I've striven to ensure that all Oz knows the story of your braverism. Loud before his throne, he decreed you can be known as Glinda the Good officially. With the jealous squeal, the wicked witch burst from concealment where she had been lurking.
Morble created a story of how terrible Elphaba was to Glinda during Defying Gravity. Glinda was a symbol to the Ozians, not just of her own goodness, but of how wicked Elphaba was. Glinda was exploited by them as well. Comparing these songs show that Glinda and the Wizard have two different intentions and two different inner lives, but the exact same result. And no, Glinda isn't the one putting Dr. Dilliman in a cage, but she's not getting him out of that cage. I want to go back to Wonderful for a minute.
The most celebrated are the rehabilitated. There'll be such a whoop-de-doo, a celebration throughout Oz that's all to do with you.
He's telling Elphaba that he can rehabilitate her and help her assimilate. And if she goes along with what's happening to the animals, she can profit just as the Wizard and Glinda have. Going back to White Tears, Brown Scars. In white societies, people of color are used as a wedge. Immigrants are given promises of acceptance and assimilation that come with implicit and sometimes explicit threats of ostracism if we don't comply. At the same time, we remain excluded from the inner circle, as the lack of people of color in leadership positions attests. This two birds, one stone approach is just one of the ways in which white domination maintains itself. What is saddening is how often and how deeply people of color buy into it. Across the world, whiteness has become so attached to the symbol of privilege, wealth, and status that it no longer needs European-derived white people themselves to perpetuate it. The Wizard wants to legitimize himself through her, but not be her equal. And Elphaba, so desperate to have that celebration that's all about her, almost buys into it. And we all know that if Elphaba agreed to this, she would not have been accepted by the public. They are so terrified of her from the propaganda that she could not simply go to being a Glinda-like figure. This is a lie being told to her.
What is it? What's wrong? It wasn't me. It was her. I tried to stop her. Look, please, I still. It was Elphaba, look. It was Elphaba.
This song takes place between Thank Goodness and Wonderful. It's not on the musical's album because it's mostly dialogue, and the director said that it would give away too much of the plot, so it's left off. Nessa and Elphaba's father was governor of Munchkinland. He had passed away from shame watching Elphaba fly around, and Nessa became the new governor. But if you didn't understand why people don't like Nessa, this is why.
I'm not free to leave Munchkinland. None of us are. Ever since she took power, she's been stripping the Munchkins of our rights.
She has oppressed the people by her own selfishness and her own insecurities. And further than that, in her position of power, she has done nothing to stop the lies circulating about Elphaba.
And why should I help you? You fly around Oz trying to rescue animals you've never even met, and not once have you ever thought to use your powers to rescue me.
Elphaba, who has taken a back seat in her own life in order to take care of Nessa. Apparently she's a bitch for that because she didn't give her the ability to walk. Side note, the representation for people with disabilities in this musical is hard to stomach. Nessa is mad at Elphaba for not fixing her and making her able to walk. Yikes. Elphaba then realizes she can enchant the slippers Nessa's wearing in order to help her walk. Bok then sees her walking and says that Nessa doesn't need her anymore, so he's gonna go try to win Glinda back. Nessa then grabs Elphaba's spellbook and says that she will make sure his heart stays with her, but it ends up just shrinking his heart, so Elphaba has to take the spellbook back and make it so that he can live without a heart, turning him into the Tin Man, which him becoming the Tin Man and Fiyero later becoming the Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion being the cub that was in class. That turns the dynamics on the Yellow Brick Road. Kind of confusing, but We can tell a lot about Nessa from this crotch punch of a scene. First, she sucks. Second, we can see that she's doing the same thing as the wizard, Madame Morble, and to some extent Glinda. She is upholding the system that oppresses her own people. But unlike the others, Nessa is labeled as wicked. So what's the difference? She doesn't create a candy-coated appeal. She doesn't distract anyone from her cruelty. She hasn't convinced the people that she's doing this for their own good. It's showing what politicians can get away when they do create this facade, and that politicians with or without it are still bad. This again proves that wickedness is not something a person does, but how people see them. So the scene after Wonderful is very important. Elphaba sets all the animals free, and she's about to be taken by the guards. Fiyero is the captain of the guards, and he only took this position in order to find Elphaba. Now that he's found her, he frees her. Glinda shows up and watches them run off together, and she stays beside the wizard. In this part, we are the most disappointed in Glinda, and she throws Elphaba under the bus for her own selfish reasons.
Use her sister. Spread a rumor. Make her think her sister's in trouble, and she will fly to your side. You will have her.
A rumor won't do it. Elphaba's too smart. Perhaps a change in the weather!
This is Glinda's lowest moment, and she barely pulls up at the end. It is the moment of jealousy watching Fiyero run off with Elphaba. She wants Elphaba thrown in jail and taken out of the sky for this. It's just another way Glinda has to have her way. And the framing says that we should be sad for Glinda, especially with the next song, the reprise of I'm Not That Girl, where she laments this breakup. Even though it was clear the whole musical that they were not good together, they were just perfect together. This feels very early 2000s girl fight-y. I think if this musical was made today, this part would have been taken out. We shouldn't feel sad for Glinda for losing Fiyero. We should pity her for being so stupid as to turn her back on Elphaba in this way. Fiyero's arc is pretty interesting. He goes from dancing through life to putting his life in danger for Elphaba. At first, his character just seems like a fluffy love triangle that's tacked onto a story that already has enough going on, but I think it's actually important that this was included. This storyline isn't just a simple which girl he likes more. Which love triangle path is he gonna follow? This is more about what type of life he wants to live, an inauthentic one or an authentic one. Glinda is not that girl because she prioritizes appearances over their relationship and over their actual inner lives. Fiyero cannot stand ignoring that part of himself anymore. Fiyero does what we wish Glinda did. He could have married her and stayed unexamined. Fiyero is the only character that actually fights for Elphaba. Fiyero fights for her and loses things for her, and this illustrates the difference between accomplice and ally. These are both terms for a privileged group who are against the marginalization of a non-privileged group. Just to be clear, privilege does not mean that you are rich, that you've had an easy life. All it means is that there are some things in life that you will never have to experience or even have to think about simply because of who you are. In the context of the musical, that would mean everyone but Elphaba and the animals. The term ally is defined as someone who advocates for groups or individuals who do not come from the same place of privilege as the ally. Being an ally is considered one of the first steps in race and social justice work. Allies will try to educate themselves and understand their privilege and will work to help people who are oppressed. I feel hesitant to call Glinda an ally completely. She definitely was during Popular, and definitely wasn't when she told the wizard to put Nessa in danger. Glinda loves Elphaba and believes that it's wrong for people to hate her for being green. She encouraged Elphaba to work with the wizard and be successful. But she is not an accomplice because she doesn't go with Elphaba on the broom. Fiyero is the only accomplice in the play. In a court of law, the word accomplice has a negative connotation, as in someone who has assisted someone else in wrongdoing. In the context of race and social justice work, an accomplice is someone who assists others in creating a space of inclusion, equity, and safety for all, often at the risk of their own social and/or professional standing and physical well-being.
Don't be afraid. I'm not. It's the wizard who should be afraid. Of me. Elfie, listen to me. Just say you're sorry.
Oh! Let the green girl go!
Fiero, Helenos! Fiero!
Let her go! I said let her go! Elphaba, go now!
No! Not without you, Fiero!
Hush! Now! Go.
Fiero gives up his reputation, position as the captain's guard, and his perfect engagement with Glinda. And he puts his life in serious danger just to stand with Elphaba. Fiero isn't the perfect definition of accomplice, but he is demonstrating the key tenets of this role, which is that you have to accept the cost of fighting. What I'm hoping to impress upon folks is that this work, the work of being an accomplice, might cost you something. Perhaps your comfort or your social standing, or maybe even your safety. Real advocacy and comfort rarely go hand in hand. An ally is someone who says, I'm here for you. An accomplice is someone who says, I'm here with you. An ally will be there after you've been bloodied. An accomplice is there getting bloodied with you. I don't think Glinda has ever considered getting in the trenches with Elphaba. She's never considered giving up her comfort or her privileges. There is a moment at the end where she does start to move towards accomplice, and we can only hope that she continues that progress. Fiero stands with Elphaba in meaningful ways. He rejects the system that benefits him in order to live an authentic life. We don't know how far he would have gone to free more animals with Elphaba or what he would have done to combat the wizard. We can assume that he would be fighting as hard as Elphaba after we see him free the lion cub in part 1 and also how we see him give everything up in part 2. But he is captured by guards right after this in order to help Elphaba run away. Fiero and Elphaba know that this might not work out, but they want that one moment of authentic love. The house has fallen. Dr. Dilliman is locked in a cage, and Fiero is captured by guard. We don't see what's happening to him, but he's being beaten to death by the guards he was just captain of.
Let his flesh not be torn, let his blood leave no stain, let beat him, let him feel no pain.
Everything good Elphaba tried to do has ended poorly or gotten people killed, and she's had it. If we look back to Dancing Through Life for a second, we can see that Glinda had the opposite problem of Elphaba. She was two-faced and honestly a bully, and she was rewarded for it.
What question haunts and hurts? Too much to mention. Was I really seeking good or just seeking attention? Is that how good deeds are when looked at with an ice cold eye?
In this world, deeds are not good or bad on their own. Their merit is determined by who is doing them, not by what they are doing. When you are marginalized, there are assumptions made about you. Everything you do is filtered through the small mind of the oppressor. Good things are only being done as a performance. She doesn't know what a good person is anymore and where true goodness comes from. Elphaba has seen every good person in this world be revealed to be a fraud. As much as this play looks for the source of evil, it also looks for the source of good and what good actually means. And it's also placing the importance on the intention of the deed and not the deed itself. Was it for attention or to be good? She's fighting for the people of Oz and they have punished her for it. And you cannot blame the oppressed that is trying to fight and trying to get even the oppressor out of the mud. And when everyone stabs them in the back, you cannot blame them for walking away and letting everything burn. In real life, because our system of patriarchy is still very much standing, every time women of color attempt to get freedom for all women, they are punished for it. And white women still profit off of it. The only reason why white women have any freedoms today is because women of color fought for us. As Elphaba sings No Good Deed, she is degreenified. The musical is asking if she hadn't been green this whole time, would the event still play out the same? Would her good deed go unpunished? Think about all the good things that Elphaba could have accomplished in this musical, all the good ideas she had, and all the people she was fighting for. Think about how successful she would have been if she wasn't green. Think about how much better off the world would have been if they had listened to her, and how tragic it is that they didn't just because of what she looks like.
Let all loss be agreed. I'm wicked through and through since I cannot succeed. Fiero saving you, I promise no good deed. What I attempt to do again.
None of this had to happen, and it happened for the dumbest reason possible. The simple moment of just turning her not green for a moment points out how much racism and prejudice can destroy, how much darker it makes the world. The level of dehumanization we saw at the beginning is now here.
It is more than just a service to the wizard. I have a personal score to settle without it. With the wind!
Any cruelty they want to do to her is completely justified, because they have labeled themselves as good and her as wicked. Glinda really told Madame Morrible and the wizard that if you put Nessa in danger, Elphaba will show up, and then she gets confused when a house gets dropped on her? Okay. So here's where it clicks for Glinda.
No, that's not how it happened. Madam, we've got to stop this. It's gone too far. Madam, something's been troubling me. About Nessa Rose, about that cyclone.
I suppose it was just her time.
Was it? Or did you?
Listen to me, Missy.
She realizes that Madame Morrible dropped the house on Nessa and that Elphaba is in real danger. She saw her position as something to just bring comfort to the Ozians.
And now, you're getting what you wanted. So just smile and wave and shut up! Good fortune, witch hunters! Good fortune!
This can imply that she never thought her position was able to create change before this, or that anything needed to be changed. Either way, it comes from her ignorance like every other bad thing she does.
Now it's up to you, for both of us. Now it's up to you.
Glinda decides to go to the castle where Elphaba is hiding out and tells her to release Dorothy and warns her that she is in real trouble.
They're coming! No, go away! Let the little girl go and that poor little dog, Dodo!
When I first saw this musical, I wondered why it focused so much on their friendship. Why is the untold story behind the Wizard of Oz their friendship?
You are the only friend I've ever had. And I've had so many friends. Only one that mattered.
For the most part, Glinda becomes the public figure she would have been whether or not she met Elphaba, and Elphaba has faked her death and ran from society. Why does the play start when they meet and end when they say their last goodbye? It's to show that genuine friendships between people who are different and go through life differently can happen. They do this by forgetting what the other person looks like and just meeting each other where they are with kindness. Effort needs to be put in for one to undo their own prejudices they didn't even know they had. And on top of that, Fiero shows us that you have to know who you are in order to truly love somebody else. The viewer should mourn a friendship that could have been. They could have made the best team, but Glinda didn't side with her. This is what I mean by the framing of the musical is different from how people would look at it today. It is bittersweet when you watch it in the early 2000s, but now we are angry that Glinda didn't fight harder for what we are mourning. We end where we started. You can hear the townsfolk singing "No One Mourns the Wicked" in the back as Glinda descends in her bubble, just like she did at the beginning of the play. But we have a different view of the first song. We can see Elphaba about to run away for good, but she looks back on the celebration that was all to do with her, and she looks back at Glinda to say goodbye. And they disappear, and the audience can just hope that they're okay. After everyone believes that Elphaba has melted, Glinda finds a green vial under her hat. She recognizes it as something the wizard also has. She brings the truth forward, and the wizard realizes that Elphaba was his daughter all along.
I want you to leave Oz. I'll make the pronouncement myself that the strains of wizardship have been too much.
And then she tosses Morble's ass in prison.
Have you ever considered how you fare in captivity?
Hell yeah. So this suggests that Glinda is now the highest ranking person in Oz. So Glinda has made the right choice by removing the people in charge rather than trying to appeal to them. There is no fixing a system that was built on racism, sexism, and other prejudices. You have to tear it down and rebuild it better. Glinda stepping into their position doesn't mean that the system is being rebuilt, but we don't know if she has a plan to do that. The musical ends about a minute after this happens, and Glinda gives us no hint for what she plans to do with the animals and what she plans to do with Oz. We can just hope that she has seen the damage done by her inaction and has decided to change. And thank goodness Morble and the Wizard gave Glinda the title Glinda the Good, because she was good to them. In Glinda's last lines of the play, she rejects that she was ever good. Not only that she hadn't been good, but that she needs to work hard in order to realize what goodness really is.
Friends, we have been through a frightening time, and there will be other times, and other things that frighten us. But if you'd let me, I'd like to try to help. I'd like to try to be Glinda, the good.
She doesn't just want to be a public figure anymore. She wants to be genuinely good, and for that position to mean something and do something. So we can hope that Glinda in this new position will lead the Ozians into more understanding and kindness and less prejudice and pitchforky hatred.
Defying gravity. I'm flying high, defying gravity.
So is Glinda good? She couldn't have been for most of the play even when she wanted to. The musical breaks down how racism functions by showing how it's perpetuated and how people we think are good can be complicit in it. Oppression is lies that saturate society. It's done through removing the marginalized experience from history, media, schools, literature, so that politicians can tell us what actually happened and we can't dispute it. We can see that Glinda's ignorance and how she participates in the patriarchy and racist systems forces Elphaba to suffer. This is a tragedy because Glinda does love Elphaba. You cannot say that their friendship does not exist, but her good intentions aren't enough. Her devotion to appearance ruined both of them. Wicked is a cautionary tale that tells us not to listen to politicians and never question them. It tells us to push ourselves to understand each other and to not put status and appearance over truth. We shouldn't look up to Glinda at all. We should learn from her to make our feminism more inclusive because it actively hurts people when we don't. And most of all, we should laugh at the red hats leaving the theater thinking that they're Elphaba. So go write your girls kissing girls fanfics. Trust me, I'll be looking for them. I hope you like this video. This is my channel where I talk about everything writing and sometimes I analyze things. If you like what I'm doing, please go check out my Patreon. I have an exclusive video this month about Emily Dickinson's poem I Heard a Fly When I Died, and I also have bloopers from recording this video. Recording in a house with 9 people is hard. You can also go check out my boyfriend's channel if you really like nerd shit. He makes videos about putting video game characters into Smash and what that would look like, and also a bunch of Pokemon stuff. I don't understand it, but he looks cute when he makes it. Go check out the links in my bio if you want to see me doing other stuff.
What is it?
It's just, for the first time, I feel
Wankified.